Hey, welcome back, everybody. Time once again for another episode of Living Hope, the show that explores all those living with pancreatic cancer and how they deal with it on a daily basis. With a woman who's done that better than most, Roberta Luna. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be back. Our guest today, Wendy Hammers, is unable to join us, but she will be coming in very soon. She was going to kind of wrap up our cancer survivor celebration month, but
Yep.
she'll be in probably sometime next month. So we'll be happy to have her. Before we get started on too much, I wanted to let you know, I know you're not a fan of the handshake custom, but today is actually National Handshake Day.
Is it really? I stopped during COVID. I stopped shaking hands because 100 people come in a day. I thought I'm not going to do it anymore. Did George Washington shake hands? No, I don't know.
I don't know if he did, but I did a little bit of research because, we always talk about it. And so I was kind of curious, where did the custom come from?
Yeah, right.
And there was a lot of theories out there, but the one I found was kind of interesting was in the theory that when we had the medieval knights, the Roman soldiers, and any other person, I guess, that carried weapons,
Right.
men used to check for hidden daggers by grasping each other's arms in a greeting. So that's how the handshake
I
started.
kind of heard the same thing. It was like, because the Romans used to do it kind of like, I'll do it up. They grab like your halfway up there, not your hand, but sort of like pull you close and are you doing something? I don't know. It's a strange custom. We all do it so automatically. COVID came along, we didn't want to do it, and I never started again. So I'm just back to fist bumping again. And I haven't gotten any colds, so, whatever we're transmitting by shaking hands. I'm a good Irish Catholic. We go to Mass every week. We used to always shake hands at some point in the Mass. Nobody does that anymore. We all just
The
wave
peace
and
be with you, right?
peace and what
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, but I just thought that was interesting. So the next time I shake hands with somebody, I probably will think about it a little bit
Yeah.
differently.
Is he armed? Has she got a gun? Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, then I feel even better. There's a good reason not to shake hands. They might be armed here.
You never know, right?
Well, today, that leads into the Defense Department. Weird thing.
Well, that's a weird way to go. Sure.
You have been doing something quietly for a while. Today we're going to talk about just a little bit, which is this idea that you've been sitting on a commission, a panel, or something?
Yeah,
here?
I've been fortunate to be part of the Department of Defense. It's called the Pancreatic Cancer Research Program, and I was able to sit on their review board last year and listen to some wonderful things that are going to be happening with scientist research and stepping forward to hopefully getting us more survivors and more
Yeah.
treatment methods.
So let's break that down. I got 3 comments I got to make about that. Number 1, why is the Defense Department studying pancreatic cancer?
It was really odd. I always thought because we always talk about it being a battle or a war. So
Yeah,
I really was thought, well, that's kind of long fetched, right? But in research, what they found is there are a lot of veterans, unfortunately, that are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So it was the perfect fit.
And they have to not only support them while they're in the service, but later on through the Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs, hospitals and whatnot. They want to know how to handle these things. Is the program just to kind of educate them as to the effects and what people go through and all that, or are they actually trying to fund research to do what? To cure it, to control it, to help it? What are they looking to do?
I think all of the above that you just mentioned it is for, like I said, the Department of Defense, and it is specialized just for pancreatic cancer research. And it is research. It's researching to find early detection methods, better treatment, just, anything to help the survival rate. So there's a lot that goes into it. But
So here's another interesting, my point number 2. How things intersect. My wife would say, see, it's all sort of part of some universal plan here. So I don't know if I go that far. But we're in UCI's Applied Innovation Center, big fancy place. They're trying to take technology and turn it into something, mostly research from campus, mostly faculty research, and mostly med tech and medicines. That's what gets funded here most. Cures for, there isn't anybody working on pancreatic cancer. I don't know why here, but all sorts of other diseases they're working on, either treatments or protocols or things to measure it or maybe even a cure. So last night they invited me down to they have all these wild things I can half understand here. And it was a symposium put on by one of the tenants here, who's a consultant, to help raise what they call non-dilutive funding, which is a fancy way for saying grants, money that people give you and you don't have to give them part of your business. So and usually it's at early stage for just pure research. venture capitalists, although you had that one on your show recently, don't generally fund pure research. They will take something you've already proven and try and take it to market. But just sit and tinker in a lab and see if you can come up with some interesting ideas or theories, no. That's usually government funded through the National Institute of Health or other sorts of things, which we'll talk about too. And why am I making this long statement? Because this whole seminar was about for people in the health sciences, biotech. Where do you go find money? Hard to get investors these days, but the government, even though it's cutting back lots of these programs, as we'll talk about, still has funding for lots of pure research. And one of the big funders is the Defense Department for health sciences. Would you ever think to go get a grant from the Defense Department to study cancer?
No, and that's why I say a lot of people always wondered, well, how did you get it on the Department of Defense bill to
Right.
begin with? And it is because of the veterans that are suffering from pancreatic cancer who have died from it. So that's how it was
And
able.
they got money. They're approaching a $1 trillion. They may have crossed it in this new budget. $1 trillion defense budget. That ain't all for bombs. It's for health care and other issues that they're looking into.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they took a big hit when I think they lost 37% for cancer research
Right.
on its own. And then the research program that we had just for pancreatic cancer actually lost everything for
Everything. They were going to cut the whole program.
the whole program was cut for the fiscal year of 25. But on the encouraging side, we just found out recently that we actually passed the fiscal year budget for 2026 in the House side. So that's half
And
the
that
battle.
did include funding. They put some funding back in for the Defense Department's study of pancreatic cancer.
Yes, for the Pancreatic Cancer Research Program, or PCARP in short. PCARP in short, received their funding back. So for 2026, but now
All of it or some of it?
all of I think it was 15 million is what they received,
Okay.
and that's what they lost. I know they're asking, of course, for more because we need more. But right now, we're happy that at least we got it on the House side. So now we need to get the Senate to approve, and then from then,
So
of
write
course,
your senators and say, hey, all for cutting out waste and fraud. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. We all think the government's kind of over, but whether you're left, right, or center, and I'm probably a little more left, even I think, hey, we can cut back on some of this stuff. But don't cut it all out.
No,
Let's
it's
take a hard look at it.
bipartisan, and what people don't understand is the most of our funding does come from the government.
Yeah.
So we really need them to reinstate it and to get back. And PanCan, or the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, actually makes it very easy for everybody. So I encourage everybody to go to their website, pancan.org. There's a form letter there you can complete. It only takes a few minutes. You just put in your address, and it'll already send it to get it ready for your senator. And it's a form letter, but the thing is, there's a section there where you can actually add your own personal story.
And they count these things. They really do, folks. If nobody complains, they think, I guess nobody cares.
Yeah, very true. And I think what happened is the president and CEO of PanCan, Julie Fleshman, has spent a great number of days on the Hill with Washington D.C. with our representatives to talk to them about this. And between her action and over 10,000 advocates writing and calling the representatives, raising their voices, is why we got the funding
See?
back.
Exactly.
So the squeaky wheel really does get the grease.
Certainly when it comes to funding.
Yes.
All right, so last question then. Most unlikely place to study pancreatic cancer, I would think, is the Defense Department. But not only your experience, and in this building, the consultants who help people go find money to fund biotech and biomedical things, they're saying, hey, don't overlook the Defense Department. They still got a lot of money they're throwing at these things here. And I'll make one little other aside. One of the things they mentioned is because of the headline grabbing, Doge, we're cutting everything out, all these departments are being eliminated, education, all this other stuff. There was a perception among people looking for funding, I'm not even going to try because it's gone. And they're saying, don't give up. The ship hasn't sailed yet, one, and they still have money for this year that's been allocated that fewer people are coming in asking for. So there is an opportunity if you're looking to fund research still today and maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, what would have happened if if Julie hadn't taken this on and the advocates, then we would have
Kudos.
nothing for next year. So
Kudos.
my hat's off to everybody who did those letters, made those phone calls, and for the time Julie spent.
And don't give
in
up
DC.
because we're still needed right now. If you're listening to this, we're doing this in end of June 2025. Any time is a good time to let your Congress people know I support this cause. We need some money. And 15 million out of what's the $1 trillion budget? That's a drop in the bucket. It's
Yeah, it
a
really
piece of
doesn't sound
sand.
like a lot, but it is better than nothing at
So
all.
here's my
we'll
last
take
question,
it.
then we'll go into some other stuff. Potpourri segment today here. How did they find you, and what do you do there? What do I'm pretty impressed. I was a big history major my whole life, kind of fascinated with military history. And little Roberta Luna has been called up, had top secret clearance with the Department of Defense. Can't make it today. I'm at the Department of Defense.
Oh, not quite like that. I'm sure, but it was quite an honor to be asked to be on this.
How did they
review
find
board.
you, and what do you do?
Actually, you have to be nominated, and from my understanding, PanCan did nominate me, so
Okay.
it was really a nice honor. And you have to fill out all this paperwork,
Yeah,
obviously.
it's the government.
Yeah, and you do have to say that you cannot discuss anything, so you have to sign the non-disclosure and all
But you
that.
can talk to us.
I can say that I served on a review board. I just can't tell you what we reviewed or what we talked about and what we
Okay.
saw. But I can just let you know that it was, a
And
lot
how-
of great
A
stuff.
lot
out
of
there to
people
come.
are they all experts, or are they all advocates, or are they all ordinary people who've gone through this? Give me the mixture. Can we talk about that? I mean, what kind of people sit on this board?
Yeah, no, you can. You have scientists, you have professionals, you have regular lay people like myself who, once we saw some of these things, didn't understand a word of it, but was able to get it explained to us in very easy, words. We could understand what we were supposed to be looking at. But most of them are either survivors on this particular one for pancreatic cancer, or they're caregivers. So it was
All
quite
right,
a mix.
top secret stuff. We can't talk about it, but just know that Roberta Luna is on the Defense Department review panel here.
Stop saying my name out there.
Roberta Luna. Go Google it.
There you go.
All right. So good news, maybe, that it looked like a disaster that it was going to get cut out of. Even this program was going to get cut out. They've lost a lot of funding this year.
Yes.
A lot of cancer funding. And again, I don't want to get political, but to me it seemed like kind of an overreaction. Yes, the government's big. Let's cut it back. Does that mean cut it all out? Is it all worthless? Is it all a waste? Some will be typing yes, yes, yes. But before you answer that, go look at some of the stuff that's going to get cut like this. If we stop research, that's the whole point you've said to some other people. You can't just pick it up next year or 2 years or whatever. The scientists move on.
Yeah, it's difficult because if they have nothing to do or they've lost their job, they've got to go somewhere. They've got bills to pay. They've got to put food on their table.
Right.
So I can't blame them for not sticking it out. But a lot of them have, and I'm very thankful that they've done that. And we will see.
Well,
them
I'd be
next
curious
year.
to have what's her name, Aggie Hirschberg, who really is
Yes.
an advocate for this. She's got a bunch of money, funds a center up after her husband died, a very wealthy couple, and they put their money where their heart is, and she funds, because her husband died from this disease.
Yes.
She funds a center up in UCLA. What's it called? The Hirschberg
The
Foundation.
Hirschberg Foundation for Pancreatic Cancer Research.
And she said openly, this is a couple of years ago when she was on this show, I thought it was just she's like, hey, we got a bunch of money. We can. The perception is we can solve this. It's just money, right? Let's go get it. And what? A couple of years, we'll figure this out. And what is she? 20 years later, they're still trying to figure some of the stuff out. But what they've gotten close on, very close, is a blood test. And talk about that. How life-changing would it be if I could go in, like I do with my prostate every year, take my annual physical, take my blood, and they tell me if I got a problem.
Exactly. It would be very, very helpful. In fact, a few years ago when we were in DC, actually prostate cancer and pancreatic cancer both had the worst survival rates.
Yeah.
Once they came up with that blood test for prostate cancer, now it's 99%, I believe, is
Yeah,
survival rate
because
for
I
that.
get to it
so.
earlier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know I got it till it's too late.
Right, right.
And that's been one of the challenges. All right, so that's one that they have been working on, getting close to. Some other people on your show, nobody's saying what and why, but that one they seem to has high hope. But if the funding gets cut to the universities, to the individual scientists, to whoever is looking at this stuff, we may miss that golden opportunity, and how many people would die because of it.
Yeah, that's the sad part is we're finally, we're still at 13% survival rate is still not good, but it's better than what it was when I was diagnosed and my dad, which was 4%. So it has come up. But this last year, it actually stayed the same. So we can't afford to lose anything that we had. We need to
God forbid it
continue
goes
going.
backwards.
Now, that would be horrible to start slipping down, but we need to prevent that. So the way you can do that is, like I said, go to pancan.org and just fill out that letter, add your personal story, and it'll get sent for you. You don't have to do anything else.
Cut
Very,
out the
very
crazy
easy.
stuff. Keep the important stuff.
Yeah. I want to give a good shout out to Let's Win, who's partnering with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network on their new podcast, stemming from the weekly chat they hosted on Twitter. Now
Really?
it's coming to us on a podcast hosted by Allison Camarado, I believe is her name. And I believe she was or is on CNN and Fox News, so she's quite known. You can Google her, but she lost her husband recently to pancreatic cancer. So
So the conversation is spreading. We're not
yes.
just the only lone voice in the wilderness.
No, and I'm really, proud of what Let's Win is doing. And like I said, they're partnering with PanCan, so it'll be great to see. They used to have I believe it was a weekly a weekly podcast on Twitter. I don't think it was considered a podcast, sorry, but a weekly show on Twitter.
Right.
And I think when Twitter changed their format or went to X, I think Let's Win took a step back and thought they needed to do something different as well. So I was really happy when they told me they were going to be doing this podcast. And I actually watched it yesterday and was very encouraged.
Good.
And
Well,
did a
let's
great
see if
job.
we can get her on your show, and we'll cross-pollinate. She can talk to you about your audience we build here in Southern California, and you can help promote their national audience that they're trying to build for their show.
Exactly, and that's what we've done. And for the first time, really, I could say probably I've ever really done is I actually asked permission to do that.
You never asked permission.
No, I don't. So that was very odd, but I wanted to give the respect I think they deserve. So I did ask if we could promote it and was given permission to
There
do
you
that.
go.
So we will be doing that, yes.
All right. So that's good news. The voice is spreading. The funding looks like it's been added back in, at least for the Defense Department program. Still need to push through the Senate, so don't give up. Write those letters. Keep those cards coming, folks, and tune in to more conversations. What else do we got to catch up in our housekeeping day here?
Well, I thought I kind of, like I said, since it's, we're looking at Survivor Month, just kind of looking back for like when myself and my dad was diagnosed in 1998, some of the things that had changed or what wasn't an option. And most people, unfortunately, in 98 and 2002 were diagnosed late. So when surgery
Yes.
wasn't an option, treatment choices were limited to surgery and basic chemotherapy, and survival was very low. It was only, my dad and I were both diagnosed, it was only 4%.
4%.
Which is, horrible, horrible. And now we are up to 13, but we need to push that even further. So
Do
now,
you think it's helped? Do you think doctors are more aware of it? We don't have to go through all the litany of issues, but you've talked about it numerous times. Your doctor didn't think you had it. Others didn't want to look at it. It's the last thing they look at. You got a back pain. You got something here. Let's exhaust the other possible things here, and then maybe we'll look at pancreatic cancer. And meanwhile, this thing's growing.
yeah, I think I'm seeing more doctors getting into the program sooner. I mean, a lot of people that I've talked to were diagnosed by pretty much by accident because
Yeah.
they were, looking actually maybe at something else. But at least the doctors, when they were telling them their symptoms and what they were feeling, they weren't necessarily just, overlooking it. They were doing something like, okay, let's get some further testing. Even though I don't think they were really still expecting pancreatic cancer, at least they weren't just
Dismissing it.
no, and they weren't hearing like I heard, let's just wait and see, which isn't.
Let's wait and see. The things you don't want to hear if you have cancer that has at that time a 96% negative outcome here.
No, and I'm not that type anyway. I'm not really good at just sitting around and waiting. I have difficulty
I
doing
kind
that.
of guess so. All right. The other question I'd have is, or here's a takeaway I've gathered just the last year. The number of guests you've had on survivors who say not only was it diagnosed quickly, they took action quickly. A couple of these people went in and got the Whipple like the next week or the next month or something. I mean, that was very unlikely. Took a long, and once they found it, between that stage and whether you can get the one and only operation that seems to go in and remove this thing, as horrendous as that is, rearranging your plumbing, as everybody calls it, there, am I just picking up anecdotal evidence? But that seems to, you were even shocked, a couple of these people, how quickly they were in for surgery.
Yeah, I think it was Wes Simple actually.
Yeah.
Who?
There's a couple of them. I know.
Yeah, who is, I believe, 21 years survivor, something somewhere in there. And I was just really, I think, speechless, which isn't very common either. But for him to come in and say, yeah, they just did the surgery, and then they told him it was cancer, and I was just like, whoa. I mean, you'd think they would explain or something, but either they felt they didn't have the time, or I don't know. But it was successful because.
But the whole idea that back to the point of when your experience was, they kind of ignored it, they kind of overlooked it. It was wait and see. don't jump to conclusions. Hey, but my parents had it. I know. Don't worry about it.
No.
Now that we're feeling, I can't prove it, but it's feeling like that attitude's changing a little bit. They're recognizing it faster. They're taking it more seriously, and they're even taking action quicker.
They are, because I used to tell you if you have two or more people, close relatives diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, you should start looking at it. Now they're telling you if you have one person diagnosed with pancreatic cancer,
Yeah.
you should. So I know a number of people who, have lost family members, and so they're being checked yearly for it. So, it has changed, and I'm glad to see that, because the earlier we catch it, the better survival that we're going to
Clearly.
have. Clearly, yes.
One of these days you got to do something on genetic testing. You teased it about here, but this idea that maybe there is a marker that they can discover that doesn't mean you get it, but you might have a tendency toward, or a gene that that opens this up. As controversial as that is, because you've said they can't prove yet it has any genetic component, but everybody seems to think it might have some, that it runs in families more than others, and that makes members more likely, leads to the question of your kids, your sons, and other people who have kids. Should they be worried about it, thinking about it, doing checking it more often?
My opinion, and it doesn't agree with everybody, but my opinion is find out if it's there, what you have, because at least if you're aware, maybe you might decide, okay, I want to make some lifestyle changes, or I want to just start watching to see if I do have any early symptoms so that I can catch it early. But a lot of people, and I always call it, I guess, the ostrich syndrome.
Yeah, right.
Because they want to, and I understand, because it's not a pleasant
Don't
thought.
tell me. I don't want to know.
Right. And, so they want to bury their head. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about it. And it's like a few times we've done awareness events, and I even had people come up to me and say, don't tell me about it. I don't want to catch it.
Yeah.
Like, if you talk about it, I'm going to catch it. And
Right.
we're not contagious. It's not a contagious disease.
So you've got, what, 2 boys that are grown?
Yeah, 2 boys. And so, yes, they will be looking into, they're very interested in doing it. So there's something, Proceed, I believe it's called, is
Okay.
a program, and they will be doing that. And it's something that, they will get.
Is it expensive? Can you do it anywhere? It's just to go
There's
get a genetic test done somewhere?
Well, you can do the genetic test, but this Proceed program is where they're going to watch you. So they're going to, they're
okay.
going to want to
Monitor.
see you more often than maybe, what you would do. So, and they will do certain testing and kind of keep on top of it, so they can find out if there is something they find early, then, maybe they can start, at least let you know what you're dealing with, and let you make that decision and not have to do it on a rush decision.
And you
So-
talk about what can I do, and there's probably very little you can do other than catch it early. But you and others who've been on the show, including a couple doctors, kind of support what I've read anecdotally over the internet. That's probably not a good place to read anything, which is that sugar may not give you cancer, but it sure might feed it. If you're more sugar-heavy diet, you might be feeding those little cancer cells into growing.
Yeah, and that's something that, I believe for a long time.
No
even
proof of
just-
that statement,
No,
but-
this is just my own feelings, and, I have some nutritionists that have agreed. But then again, you have some doctors who say there's no proof of it. So, and maybe we should have more people on and talk about that, because
Yeah.
I am hearing there are studies being done, so that at least we would know, because and I hate to really, there are certain risk factors, but I almost hate to talk about them, because I don't want anybody to feel guilty about their lifestyle.
Right.
Because you can live the perfect lifestyle and still get pancreatic
Clearly.
cancer. And you can not live the perfect lifestyle and be perfectly healthy. So I don't know what the answer is.
But if I knew I had a tendency for it, I go take this test, or I go get a genetic test in general. It's just, or I just know my family history, like yours. You had, what, 2 family members, 3?
I've lost 4 family members.
4. Okay,
Yeah.
4. Forgive me.
2 before I was diagnosed.
4. All right. And so you start thinking, hey, this might be in our genes here, pool here. What can I do? Let's pay attention to it, monitor it closer, so if it does develop into something, I can catch it quicker and have a much higher chance of survival, or cut it out or get rid of it. But you claim, people always ask you, why you, 20 plus years? Only thing you can point a finger to, other than that you weren't ready to go and God may not had a plan for you, was you did change a heavily sugared habit and got rid of it, drinking Dr. Pepper daily, which seems insane. But that was your
That
drug
was
of
my
choice.
coffee. Well,
That was your-
that was my coffee, you know. I mean, a lot of people drink coffee with lots of sugar and creamer and whatever, and Dr. Pepper just was my choice of my wake up in the morning. And
and when you did that,
when I cut that out and made some other, changes, I started, organic, make sure my food as much as possible was organic and
Right.
grass fed and whatever. And noticed those changes along with the meditation and yoga. But I have to say, I think it was mostly the diet issue, cutting back or getting rid of a lot of the sugar and being very careful what I was
so
putting in.
no proof, but that's your belief, and you're sticking to it here. And others, I've read this. Others on the show seem to support it. Even a couple of doctors you had on the show said, "Yeah, there's probably something there." And yet, you said, ironically, when you are diagnosed, because you lose weight many times, or if you're going through chemo, I guess they say eat anything.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a point in time where they tell you, because you are losing weight, and it's important to keep your weight up,
Right.
because if you get too low, then you can't do chemo. But to, reinforce it with, yeah, eat anything you want. Why didn't you tell me that when I was healthy?
Yeah.
That would be something. But to, and for my mom, we had to do that because she lost so much weight that, we were trying to get, doctor said, give her whatever she wants. So she wants a malt, give her a malt. But if you think that sugar, or you feel that sugar is contributing, it's almost like, why am I putting more fuel into the fire?
Exactly.
There has to be something more healthy nutrition that we can do. And we've had a nutritionist, Andrea O'Donnell, on here a couple of times.
She's very adamant about anti-sugar and all this stuff.
She is, and I have to believe, what she's telling me, because, like I said, I've worked with her and it's been very helpful and it's worked. So I don't know, but just, I think being aware, if you have it in your family, or even if you don't, be aware of what some of the early symptoms are, get it checked. Don't let anybody, just poo-poo you and tell you, and just let's wait and see what happens. The sooner you can get diagnosed, the earlier you can start whatever the treatment might be, the best survival rate you're going to have. And, we don't even want to just say survival, but you're going to thrive.
Yes.
Because you're going to come through this. Well, all of our survivors, they have said they're not so sure about the word survival, but they like the word they're thriving.
Yeah.
So we want all of our survivors to thrive. And you can do that with, let's just get some early, diagnosis done and get more survivors out there.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
Just again,
Write your
reach out.
congressman,
Thank
number
you.
one.
I was
We're in
going
the
to do
middle
that.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, please do that. That's pancan.org. I have a very simple way to do that. And today, usually we do, as long as you speak my name, dedication, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So over the past few weeks, we've had the honor of sharing the voices of survivors, individuals who've faced pancreatic cancer with unimaginable strength and resilience. We've heard stories on early detection, long journeys through treatment, and the many ways people are not just surviving, but thriving. As we wrap up this special series, I want to dedicate this episode to every pancreatic cancer survivor and thriver. Whether you're days, months into your journey, or decades out from your diagnosis, your courage inspires us, your voice empowers others, and your hope lights the way forward for all those still fighting. Thank you for being part of the Living Hope family. Through National Cancer Survivor Month is ending, our commitment to sharing stories, raising awareness, and spreading hope continues every single day. Together we move forward with purpose, with strength, and with living hope.
Well, on that note, we hope you'll come back and hear more, because there is hope, living hope, on this journey with pancreatic cancer. And please, if you haven't already, go check out pancan.org. Lots of great information and a simple form. Time to make your voice heard. They're fighting for funding at every level, and we're right in the midst of it if you're listening to this live. If you're listening to it later and you want just some help, go check that out, pancang.org, or Let's Win PC and pancreatic.org. Lots of places you can go to get information. Starting with this show, Living Hope, right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.